Hello and welcome to this podcast brought to you by zMainframes.com. And today we'll be discussing that what are mainframe computers, and we'll try to answer this trivial question. However, I think this question keeps on coming on our forums in very different forms, and some of them I'll put in front of you. One of which is, what is mainframe computer and how is it different from other types of computers? The second question, how are mainframes used in modern business environments? Same question, just different flavor. Third type of question, what are some of the advantages of using a mainframe over other type of computers? Then, what are the mainframe? What are the main components of a mainframe system, and how do they work together? How does the architecture of a mainframe differ from that of a traditional server? The sixth question, if you are not counting, what are some of the key challenges in managing and maintaining a mainframe system? How do mainframe handle security and data privacy? What are some common use cases of mainframe technology in the financial industry? How does the cost of a mainframe compare to other types of computer system? How does the COVID-19 pandemic have an impact on mainframe usage? So you see, uh, all those questions are very different. They come from different users. They have been asked by different experience set of people. However, the one common sense of question which remains with all of them is mainframe computers. And I think the part of the fact is that why do we see this kind of uh, question or these kind of questions coming out every now and then on the forums, or for that matter any IT forum you go to? The reason is pretty simple, which I will glue with my experience into mainframes and IT in general. That, and especially this is in the context of India, and I think it shouldn't be timid to just India. It should be applied to nearly every IT company out there. But this happens. So most of the time, when I got into the discussions wherein we had, with all due respect, the CXO suite discussing about the possible next step from a technology standpoint for the company, the question which comes as an umbrella question to everything is that how can we reduce the cost? And most of the time, mainframes are looked at as a cost to the company. They are. And for that matter, IT is a cost to company in general. So any other IT system is as much as cost as any mainframe computers out there. However, over the years, what I have seen the trend is that reducing the you know total cost to company boils down maximum time to the point that if we can get rid of the mainframes. And I think at the back of mind of all those questions which we stated some time back is this single question, that what are the mainframe computers, and then how do they map to the current technology landscape. And I think that question comes so often because uh, many of the decision makers are not coming from the technology background. I do not say that brings down their vision in some way. However, I believe that if you have worked with mainframe computers, probably you'll not have that kind of a question because you already know it what it is, and then making a decision in that context become much easier. However, that we'll try to answer those questions one by one, and then hopefully that that gives some more clarity of what we are talking about. So the first question we talked about was, what is a mainframe computer and how is it different from other types of computer? I would say that mainframe computer is a style of computing, just like any other style of computing. It's just another style of computing, and There's a very interesting analogy to me, at least, which I feel that why mainframe became so much of a discussion point. And let's take a step back to figure it out. I think in this context, in the context of this question, I can fairly assume that when we actually started working on mainframes, we can say that nearly somewhere in the mid 60s or early 60s, we had our initial computers, which we could call as mainframe computers, who had seen their commercial uses in the market. I'll leave that debate that whether computer actually became existing during that era or a little earlier than that. We'll not get into that discussion that abacus was the first computer or something of that sort. We'll say that commercially available computers, when they became available to the companies somewhere easily, this is easy to accept the fact that somewhere in the 60s, early 60s, mid 60s, they become very common bystander. Try to figure out an era when computers were just evolving. Solid state devices, as we see them today in the form of memory disk, were not that easily available. VLSI, which is a short for very large scale integration, was not that evolved. In nutshell, when we were talking about computers, then they were machines. They were big machines. They were big machines like a house, and they were evolving. You know, back in those days, I think, if I'm not mistaken, even 2 MB memory will be ported from one place to another in a that required a plane to carry that kind of memory. Today, I think we are recording this podcast in much more efficient way on a very much powerful laptop itself. So the point I'm trying to correlate to is that back then, the only choice which we had was mainframe computers. And then there was a choice of companies who could afford that kind of a computer back then. So the only choice which became very evident for those companies which wanted to make a lot of financial computations, mainframes were the only choice. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons that when we see companies today asking the question, what are the mainframes and how can we get away from them, for example, which we'll answer in subsequent podcasts whether this is a good decision or not. But that's not the context of this context today. So back then, the only choice they had was mainframe computers, and because they had only mainframe computers, so they started using that. And over the years, the business was doing pretty well with this computer, and mainframes also were evolving. Today, if you look at a mainframe computer, it's just on the server in your data center. It's no longer as big as a house. Okay. So to answer that question with that little background, I would say that a mainframe computer is a type of large-scale, high-performance computer system that is typically used for mission-critical applications in large organizations. And when I say large organizations, so they can be like government agencies, banks, large corporations, or any financial institutions. And mainframes are different from other type of computers in that they are designed to handle large amounts of data. Remember, when mainframes were evolved, so they evolved from the fact that we had calculators, right? So basically, the point was to do calculations much easier repeatedly and more complex calculations much easier. That was, I'm making it very way too simple, and but just trying to establish a context that was the rationale behind using computers back then, as far as industry is concerned. Though I'll correct myself a bit over here, that first moon mission in which the human race first time reached to on subplanet moon, under the covers the computations were happening on mainframes and IMS database was used. But that's aside, in a very common sense, if we talk about only mainframes. So the mainframes were designed and are designed to handle large amounts of data. They provide very high availability and scalability and support multiple users and applications simultaneously. This was very different in those times. This was revolutionary. We'll talk about System 360 as well, but that's a separate topic, which was one of the main operating systems of mainframes. However, I think this tries to answer that what is a mainframe computer and how it is different from other computers. The other question which we had, how are mainframes used in modern business environments? The answer is pretty simple that mainframes are still widely used in modern business environments for a variety of applications such as transaction processing, database management, and analytics. They are also commonly used for running legacy applications and managing large amount of data. And when I give an example of transaction processing, I'll just give you a correlation. If you are making use of an ATM card or if you're making use of a credit card, there is a very, very good possibility that somewhere under the covers, your transaction is going through a mainframe. If you have ever traveled with a flight, there is a very, very good possibility that your ticket was booked somewhere, touched that booking and system, touched mainframe in between somewhere. Not all the times nowadays, but to a good extent, I can probably say somewhere 90 to 95% even today, those systems are touching mainframes for sure. There is another type of mainframe system which are called as TPF. They are used in airlines, and if you ever get a time to look at the booking window at the reception of an airlines, probably you will see a mainframe screen out there. The times are changing where people require a very different user interface these days. However, remember, airlines are not developed like yesterday. They have been in our midst like eons, and so does mainframe. There was another question that what are the some of the advantages of using mainframe over other types of computers. So some of the advantages of using mainframe over other types of computer include high performance and scalability, which we talked, high availability, support of multiple users and applications simultaneously, and the ability to handle large amounts of data again. I think you have never heard that there had been an outage of mainframe, probably never. And just to add to that, if you look at some of the movies, they make use of the word mainframe so mysteriously that probably if mainframes are down, the world is down. And I think to a good extent, I would like to believe that fact that if you are working on mainframes and if somehow all the mainframes go down and probably the economy will stop even today. And I'm talking about a very superficial situation because when I say that there are a number of that all the mainframes go down, then it's every company has a different mainframe, right? All of them are not working on the same mainframe. They're not operating out of the same mainframe. So it's a very hypothetical situation, and that but then that's the situation. We talked about movies, right? So I think to a good extent, this tries to answer a couple of questions. We'll cover other questions in the other podcast, and hopefully you enjoy this one. And thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to your participation again, and hopefully we'll have your feedback. And based on that feedback, we'll get more subjects to cover, and we'll cover them going forward. Thank you again for joining us today. Have a good one. Bye now.